Hi, everyone, and welcome to the edX Live podcast by the New Indian Express, your destination for stories on innovation in education and extraordinary change makers shaping the future. Today, we have with us Seema Sampru, principal of the Heritage School, Kolkata. With over 30 years of experience and a passion for blending tradition with innovation, Seema leads one of India's most progressive and inclusive schools, nurturing confident, compassionate global citizens. Stay tuned as we explore her journey, insights, and her vision for improving education and student development.
Hi, ma'am. Welcome to TEDx Live podcast. As principal of the Heritage School for over 15 years, what core philosophies have guided your approach to evolving education in contemporary and globalized world?
Actually, when you join a school, you check out with the school management, you find out, what are the ethos of the school, what is it that they believe in. And then accordingly, whatever the core values that they've thought of, accordingly you work on those. So there is a vision and a mission of the school. Motto of the school is Atma Deepo Bhava, which means be your own light. So this is something that I firmly believe in, because we have to give them understanding that they shouldn't be dependent on others to take decisions, or the value system should never be compromised just because they feel that they need to be heard, they need to be seen, they need to be noticed. Whatever they do, they should keep that in mind, that if I'm taking a decision, I have to get back to my vision mission of the school. I have to get back to the motto of the school and say, it says, be your own light. So whenever I'm confused, I go back and I see, okay, so if I have to be my own light, so I have to find the answers within myself. Let me reflect, go back, look at the vision mission of the school. It says that, you have to look after the humanity. And so it is body, mind, spirit, everything you have to work on. And then take a decision. That's all. That's what I feel is very, very important.
The Heritage School balances tradition with cutting edge technology. How do you see this blend benefiting students' development in both academic and non academic realms?
So if I start telling you about the kind of things we do, you'll say that I'm bragging about my school. Actually, you see, I don't think you've ever heard of a school which has, maybe 32 to 35 sports teachers, and you have more than 30 activity teachers apart from them. And these activity and sports teachers don't do any of the academic classes. And there are other 300, academic teachers as well. So, what I'm trying to say is that the school has grown, but with that, the ideas have grown. With that, the number of coordinators has grown. The number of people who ensure that the teaching, learning, the individualistic kind of a individualized attention that you are giving to children always, that is never ever compromised. So, we started with about 18 to 20 children per teacher with Nada Didi, helper. In the pre-primary, we still have 18 to 20 children in the pre-primary sections. And then the maximum number of children we have in grade 12 are 30. So we have the numbers have increased, but the size of the section has not increased. So we still have 30 children per class. And that is why the individualized attention that we keep giving to our children, that is there. And the best part about the school is that, see, there are linguistic skills, there are scientific skills, academic skills, there are co-curricular skills, there are abilities that children do. So when you have so many avenues for children to work on, you realize that children are actually they're getting so many opportunity. They're getting so much of exposure. So even if today, if you ask me, am I an archer? No, I'm not an archer, but I know what exactly happens in archery. I know that there is a bow and arrow. I know there is a target. I know. So even at your age, even at my age, a whole lot of people would never have seen archery happening, or rifle shooting happening, or kho happening, or Bharatnatyam and Kathak and Odissi and Santoor and Sarod, and so all these things being played. And so when you actually live this every single day, and you see the robotics lab is there, and you also have people from the tribal area, they're coming every day to our school to teach them skills like woodcraft and to teach them also lack work, which is a dying art completely. So you have this balance and you come out. I mean, people have to come to school to see exactly what the school is all about. So you walk in the corridors and you find hordes of children coming and giving you hugs, giving you, high five, and some of them, not some of them, most of them coming and touching your feet. So it's like a family. So it's something very, very wonderful that we experience in our school.
That's nice. You have introduced research-based assignment system and project-based curriculum to move beyond memorization learning. What challenges did you face in this shift and what impact have you observed?
See, the first thing was the coordinators and the teachers. They thought it was something, a bolt from the blue, where ma'am is wanting to do this. But you see, more than the children, I think it is the adults who initially there is a little bit of resistance, because not because they don't want to do it, but because, see, all of us have studied in very, very traditional convents. And so we had not been exposed to this. So all of us need that, um, authentication to understand that this is what is right. And we have a wonderful team of teachers, educators, and coordinators, but they keep asking questions till they know that, this system will work. This kind of an assessment will work. So initially, yes, it was tough to make sure that our teachers trusted in that system. And once the teachers and the coordinators, all of us were together in this, and we started, you know, rolling it out, then parents were very upset. They felt that, you've made groups now. There are groups of 3 children, 4 children, 5 children together. Now, when these groups are together, my child used to always come first in class. So now my child is the one who's contributing to everything. The other 2, 3 children are not saying anything and they're getting marks because of my child. However, they didn't know that we had rubrics made for each individual child. And there were parameters drawn, and there were, criteria, parameters were there on the basis of what, we were actually marking and assessing each child. So it wasn't because that one child was giving all the information. So that way, when you look at these things, you realize that fine, people think that their children are by far the best just because they're coming first in class. But sometimes you realize that some children are actually very bright, very, very intelligent, and they're very good at expressing themselves, communicating. However, they're not very good with the writing bit. So when it comes to writing, they're not very good, but they have hundreds of different ideas. Yeah, so there is this Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory. You would know about it because you're not a teacher. We are teachers, so we read about it. So there are Howard Gardner has spoken about 8 different kinds of intelligences. So when he talks about that, he says that there are people who are linguistically very smart. There are some people who are spatial intelligence. Space में बहुत अच्छा दिखाई देता है उनको. There are some people who are very good with kinesthetics. They're very good with their body movement and everything else. There are some who are very good with you know interpersonal skills, and there are others who are very good with intrapersonal skills. So and there are some who are very, very logical minded. So they're very good with maths and sciences. So that is what he says. So here we talk about these things that, well, each child is different and has her own, set of very strong talents.
Emotional connection and social skills are emphasized even in daily activities like shared meals at your day boarding facility. How do this aspect contribute to overall student well-being and growth?
We start at 7, we finish at 4. It's something like that. And all children sit and have their breakfast, lunch, and evening snack together. And they all travel only by bus. In our school, it is not allowed for children to bring anything from home. So all the food is cooked here in school and is given to all the students and teachers. All of us eat together. So that is why it's a day boarding school, and they're not allowed to come by their own transport. They only can come by the buses, because the who's who of Calcutta studies here, everybody. So they'll all bring their huge cars and they'll only compare, what does your father have and what car does my mummy have, and this, that, and the other. So we are equalizing everything. And that is why everybody comes by bus, everybody eats the same thing. They're not allowed to bring anything from home. So, when you talk about emotional intelligence, emotionally how they're connected with each other, well, we have 5 in house behavioral counselors. They come from 7 in the morning till 4 in the evening, they're here. 4 of them take classes with children, which are called life skill classes, where they're talking about sensitivity, where they talk about respect, they talk about bullying, they talk about, social media, they talk about, your speech. They talk about the words you choose to, describe certain things. They talk about your study habits. They talk about your work life, your school and family balance, your school and family balance. They talk about everything on earth. And there are children, we also have circle time where children talk about which teachers, they talk about everything that they face in the class, at home. So, children today, especially in our school, there is no taboo on going to the behavioral counselor and saying, I need help. Because I do that several times. We keep talking in the assembly and we say, I met a parent and I didn't know what to do with that parent. I mean, I didn't know how to deal with a certain situation. So it's not that everywhere it says, oh, ye pagal hai, she's mad, so she's going to a counselor. No, but we feel all of us are normal, but all of us have our own areas where we need help. I am not being able to deal with a certain situation. So I go to the expert and say, how do I deal with this situation? Can you help? And then they help. That's it.
That's nice. In your experience, how important is continuous professional development for teachers?
So, professional development is a part of our school, and twice a month, we have professional development for all of us. So, we bring people from outside, we bring people from within the school. Sometimes I'm taking a session, sometimes a teacher is taking a session. So, we wear different hats at different times because, we all of us need to learn and get better at our work. So we have 10 days of orientation every year before we start a new session. So that we bring in a lot of experts. Now on 2nd and 3rd November, I don't know if you know Professor H.C. Verma. He's from IIT Kanpur. Professor H.C. Verma is supposed to be the god of physics. So he's coming to our school on 2nd and 3rd November. And he is training all of us. So he's the god of physics, but all of us will be trained. And we will learn from him how to use, simple things in the school, at home, in the classroom to make learning of physics or learning of any subject for that matter, very interesting for children with a lot of examples thrown in, with a lot of things done. So he's coming here. Then Mr. Rajput is coming here for mathematics. Then we recently had you know people coming in from various subjects, not just subjects. Actually, we have people coming in and training us for our professional development, but personal grooming also is required. So personal grooming, CPD, which is continuous professional development, because see, if teachers don't learn, who else will learn? And we've been learning about AI, artificial intelligence. We're working a lot on that, and that is what I'm excited about. So recently, I took a session on the Culture Code, which is a book by Daniel Coyle. He talks about how to, create a culture of winning and making a team which is a successful team, happy team. So we are working on that, and that I'm very excited about. And of course, we are right now making our artificial intelligence policy also, so that we know what is accepted and what is not accepted by the students and by the teachers.
India's education system faces challenges with inclusivity and ensure quality education for all. What systematic reform do you believe are the key to addressing these challenges effectively in the next decade?
So, what happens is this inclusive education, we were the pioneers to start a school which was inclusive. And in inclusive education, what happens is knowingly we take children who have, special needs requirements. So we have children with autism, we have children with dyslexia, we have children with dysgraphia, dyscalculia, we have children with Asperger's syndrome, we have children with, you know, various other physical or mental, challenges. Children who cannot, write examinations for, in the mainstream curriculum. So we take these children, and it's nice to have them here because the parents, poor things, it's not their fault. And the child doesn't have maybe retention, can't retain a certain thing for, you know, a longer period of time. So these things happen. However, we are happy. We train them. We train them in, these the social abilities also, because these children generally can't make friends. So we train them in social abilities. We try and find out. So we have, once again, we have 18 special education teachers in our school. So these people are trained. They've done their B.Ed in special education. So they know exactly what method and what pedagogy works with children who have autism, children who have dyslexia, children who have mathematics phobia, children. So they know all these things. So they use those methods, and then these children are mainstreamed and they pass class 10 and 12 from our school.
That's nice. How does the Heritage School nurture leadership and empathy among students, preparing them to be a reasonable global citizens?
So there are very subtle things that we do in school. First is there are no exams for children till grade 8. No exams. Secondly, we don't follow any syllabus in the pre-primary years. We make our own syllabus. Where the other schools are saying, and the parents initially used to come and tell us, ma'am, this child in my neighborhood in this school, ma'am, he can write A to Z and he can do this. You see, writing is a very, what should I say, very clerical. It's a manual labor as far as I'm concerned. So reading is what requires your comprehension and your mental ability, not writing. Writing is more to do with manual labor. So we don't make them write for 1 or 2 years. So they just, they look at everything. They can read. So there are a lot of children who come to us in even class 3 and 4. They can write all the answers if somebody reads the questions to them. So reading requires a lot of the ability to be able to comprehend things. So we insist and we emphasize on reading abilities. We emphasize on social abilities. We emphasize on children being able to eat. If you come to our school, 3-year-old children are all eating themselves. They eat themselves. They eat all the vegetables. They know how to eat a paratha. These are the skills: how to brush your teeth, how to go to the toilet, how to help yourself. So basic skills that one needs to be able to become a confident person. That is what we emphasize on. So our syllabus is very different from the other schools where they're making them only write questions and answers.
If you could describe your leadership style as a dance form, what would that be and why?
Kathak. You see, Kathak is a very, what shall I say? In Kathak, exactly what happens is we are generally in Kathak. There's a lot of Kathak is actually a storytelling exercise. So and I am a storyteller. So you see, I am a chemistry teacher, but I have for each, topic, each theme, I always had a story to tell them. And that is how children, enjoyed my chemistry classes. And one more thing is very, very important here with Kathak is the discipline part. And the discipline part is very important. And remember, in Kathak, there is Guru Shishya relationship. I'm a Kathak dancer as far as, and I did learn Kathak also when I was a small child. And of course, I can't demonstrate it because I've forgotten everything and I'm a very bad dancer. So I'm a Kathak dancer as far as a teacher, as a leader.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was a pleasure talking to you.
You're welcome.
We hope Seema Sapru's insights have inspired a fresh perspective on balancing tradition and innovation to create truly holistic education. For more inspiring stories and expert insights, visit edXlive.com or follow us on Instagram @edXlive. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep making a difference.